This Veterans Day weekend, discover the real heroes who beat the odds.
Today we're gonna beat underdogs.
And changed history.
You'll remember this moment for the rest of your life.
Midway, rated PG-13, November 8th.
Logic Group, and our company specializes in tracing solutions for the CNC and CAD industries. One of the big problems with CNC...
Me in Arkansas, thanks for waiting. You're on with Donovan. Hello.
Amy. I'm sorry. Are you there?
Yes. Yeah, we're here.
I'm sorry. I had to on mute for a second so you didn't hear anything in the background.
I'm sure a lot of people have me on mute.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Oh, nervous. I didn't expect you to answer so fast like that. There was the other call and hi, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're on a slight delay, so yeah, there's no... Anyway, welcome. How you doing?
Well, not the best. I called because my daughter loves you guys, and she's in her 30s, and she's very, very sick,
I'm sorry.
like dying. And I'm Christian, always have been, was raised that way. She's an atheist, and I can't talk to her anymore, and I don't understand. And she has 2 babies, and they think the way she does, and she says, what is it? She don't teach them what to think. She teaches them to think something.
Yeah, probably teach them how to think rather than what to think.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just to see her dying and all the surgeries, and she was even in a coma, and then to say those things, I'm just hard. And I would tell her, and I go through those things, prayer. She don't want to have that, and she don't even want to priest at her funeral, things like that. I mean, we're not overly religious. We don't go to church all the time, but that's just, we are religious in my family, so I don't know what to do with it. And it's just caused us nothing but fights and arguments, and she says that she don't even know if she wants the kids to come live with me if she dies, and I don't know what to do anymore. And I talked to my church, and they say, well, all we can do is pray for her. And well, that I've been doing that, and it ain't helping. We can't talk.
Well, it sounds like you're taking on all these different things all at once, and maybe it's best to maybe just talk about one topic at a time. Like the funeral planning, for example. I had my husband die recently, and he wanted a religious funeral, and that's what we did. And I feel like I did well by him to do that, even though it wasn't something that I enjoyed or thought was worthwhile to me. It was what he wanted, and so one question is, can you honor your daughter's wishes in that or not?
Because I would
Well,
I would
I
think
was also.
I would think so. Like if my mom died, she would get whatever kind of funeral she wanted. Well, now granted, when I die, I would prefer that there wasn't a religious funeral, but I'm going to be dead and I'm not going to know about it, so I'm not going to care. I certainly can't stop somebody, but we respect the wishes of the people who die because it impacts their life before they die. If I really don't want a religious funeral, and I have this nagging fear that my parents or my wife or whoever are going to have a religious funeral, that decreases the quality of my life all the way up until I die. So letting people know that we're going to respect their wishes is the reason for that is because it affects their life before they die. Would you want your daughter to, if she was the one responsible for your funeral, wouldn't you want her to respect your wishes?
But I don't know, because I was raised where we do it for the family. I don't know.
I'm in agreement that funerals are all about the people that remain behind. They're not about the dead, because the dead are dead. Would that be okay with you?
For me, I can get past it, but there's a lot of other family members that would not understand.
Okay.
At all. And I don't know. I need them there because this is hard for me.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to make it all about me, and that's why I'm calling, because I can't talk to her.
But your daughter has a wish that she not have a religious service, and
right.
It would seem to me that it's always in our best interest to respect those people's wishes because of how it impacts their life. But set all that aside for a second.
The kids feel that way too.
Set all that aside for a second. So you and your church are praying
mm-hmm.
and it's doing nothing. Isn't that at least supportive of your daughter's argument against prayer?
That's what she says. I don't see it that way because she was supposed to be dead a long time ago.
How do you know that? What's it? Whoa. What's this supposed to be? Doctors don't say, like, for example, Dave Warnock was here recently. He's got a diagnosis. He's definitely dying. He's doing his whole dying out loud tour, but he doesn't know when he's going to die. And the medical profession can't say, oh, you should have been dead. When they say anything even close to that, what they're saying is, based on the statistics of what have happened to other people with similar diagnosis and similar condition, you have lived longer than them. But it's not like they're saying it's magic or a miracle. Sometimes things go into remission. Sometimes people heal. Sometimes things that would have killed 95% of people don't kill the other 5%. And so, yes, statistically unlikely is one thing. But if you're going to think that, oh, she was supposed to be dead, but it's our prayer that has kept her alive, that's bullshit.
Well, I'm sorry, this is new. Like, her whole arguments and talking to me, it's just not what I was raised around. I am trying to hear y'all out. Like, that's why I called.
Yeah.
But we were literally planning her funeral. She said she could hear and feel everything in her coma. She was in a coma.
Yeah, I had a friend who was in a coma this summer for 2 weeks.
She was there almost a month.
Yeah.
And it's just hard for me to wrap my head around it. She said, well, there was no experience. And that was another thing that confirmed. She could hear and feel everything, which is rare.
Yeah, my friend's experience wasn't like that. Friend's experience in a coma was different from that. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
You want to, your daughter is dying, and I would think that you want to have as good a relationship with you as you can with her for the rest of her life. And that,
I do.
And that then you're worried about her children.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, and evidently for Dawn, what I want and what I'm fearful of really doesn't come into play. When my grandmother was dying, if we'd have had a conversation, I would have been honest with her because that's what she knows and expects out of me. But if she said, actually, I'll give you an example. Over Christmas, I was having a discussion with my mom, and it did not go well. And I was talking about this sort of thing, and I said, if God came to you and gave you the ability to point at anyone and send them directly to heaven, would you do that for grandmother? Because my mom was essentially saying that grandma asked God for her to not die until I came back to Jesus. Now, I don't know if my grandmother actually said that or not, because I don't know if I can trust what my mom has to say on this or whether it's being relayed accurately or whatever else. But if I thought for a second that my grandmother was hanging on to life on the hope that I would return to Jesus, I would tell her, or I would be tempted to tell her that I'd return to Jesus in order to ease her suffering. So if God came to me and gave me the ability to just point at people and send them to heaven, and I was the type of person who believed that heaven is better than suffering on earth, I'd start pointing at people left and right, left and right. And when I presented this issue to my mom was like, oh, I wouldn't do that because that would be putting myself in God's shoes. And I'm like, no, you missed the part where I said, God gave you this. God has granted you this ability. Would you do it? And she was like, no. The issue is you have certain beliefs and somebody doesn't share. Now, if God came to you and said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to, with no effort of your own, end your daughter's suffering and send her directly to heaven right now, just snap your fingers and it happens. I don't know whether or not you would do that. You probably don't know whether or not you do that. My mom certainly didn't know, despite what she said. But all of that relates to what you believe about life and death. And none of it has anything to do with what your daughter believes about life and death. And I would argue that as she's the person who's in the position of concern at this point, that what she thinks about life and death is got to be a primary concern. And if you're going to spend the rest of her days either not talking or arguing because you guys don't agree on religion, I don't know how that benefits anybody.
Yeah, I was going to offer you some advice of trying to focus on the things that you have in common and the values that you share.
There's not many.
Oh, you might be surprised. I imagine you both care deeply about these kids. You both care about each other.
That is true. Yes, that is true.
So,
and we do put family first. That's something she's always.
There you go.
Always good about that.
So maybe you can start there and maybe put the other stuff aside if you can during her final days.
How old are her kids?
14. Oh, sorry, she was from 15 and 11.
Yeah. They're plenty old enough to have a good understanding of this stuff, and if she's been teaching them how to think rather than what to think, one thing you've got to keep in mind is it's not like you're getting a couple of infants that you're going to get to make decisions about. These kids are old enough that not only are you going to have to deal with who they are as individuals, but they're going to see and remember what happened surrounding their mom's death. And rather than setting up a scenario where there's likely to be constant conflict between you and your grandkids, I would think that it would be one of the most, for lack of a better word, Christian things that somebody could do. Because my view of Christianity when I was in it was that you were supposed to be the living example of Christ, is not, hey, your mom and I disagreed about religion, so we went ahead and gave her a religious funeral, and we didn't talk, and we had all these conflicts and everything else. Because that's not going to draw your grandkids are going to be pushed further away in the first place. And I'm not here to give you advice on how to turn your grandkids into Christians, because honestly, I hope it never happens. But if in fact that were the goal, then compassion and love and respect for other people and valuing family members' wishes is the way to make sure that if your grandkids wind up planning your funeral, that you get the kind of funeral that you want. And if you'd like your grandkids in your life, recognizing that these are individual people who have thoughts and who have value, rather than, oh, these are my daughter's kids and I must save them from hell. That's everything that your religion did to you, and nothing about your actual relationship with those kids or your daughter.
That is not, but that is a real fear, though, that she won't. To me, I mean, I get that to her it's not real, but I don't know. I'm 57. This has been what I've learned all my life. How can I just not be afraid anymore? You know, turn off the light kind of thing.
I'm not saying it's easy, but
I don't know how.
Okay, so I'll tell you some of the same stuff that I told my parents, because I'm 50. My parents are in their 70s. Do you believe in a God?
Yes.
Does God want everybody to know he exists?
Yes.
Does everything happen according to God's plan?
According to the Bible.
I'm asking what you believe, whether it's, I'm just...
I want to say yes, but I've seen some... I can question it. I can. I admit that.
Okay.
I do. I question it all the time. I'm having a daughter die. Of course, I'm questioning things.
Yeah. But do you think that any action you take is going to convince your daughter to turn to Jesus?
I don't know. That's another thing I ask all the time.
Are you responsible for your daughter's salvation?
Oh, well, that's something they tell you all the time, that as a parent, even if they are an adult.
Now, have you done your best to inform your daughter about your beliefs and what you believe about Jesus once for her?
Yeah.
Okay, so isn't the responsibility now on God?
Yeah.
God's either going to save her or he's not. Instead of worrying about this, why don't you just pray that God's will be done, put the responsibility back on his shoulders and off of yours, and enjoy as best you can the rest of your daughter's life? Because under no reasonable circumstances, no reasonable notion of Christianity, are you responsible beyond what you've already done.
Yeah. Tell that to the church members, but
I will tell it to the church members, and they can call. Yeah. And I'll go verse to verse with them. And actually, I would think that, depending on the denomination, most preachers would actually agree that what I've said is far closer to biblical than whether or not you are supposed to spend the rest of your daughter's life, and then even after that, worried that you didn't do enough to save her. Because it's not you who saves anybody, according to Christianity. Either the Holy Spirit moves or it doesn't. This is all in God's hands.
Yeah, I know. It's just.
And now I feel really fucking dirty. But this is what happens when you call somebody who's actually honest.
We absolve you of your guilt.
Yeah. Focus on your grandkids. Focus on your relationship with your daughter. Let your daughter's relationship with God rest on God's shoulders. It isn't your problem.
I appreciate you all, because this call was actually a lot more positive than how I was imagining when she first brought up even listening to you guys. I watched some of your shows and I was a little scared, but
have her.
It turned out.
I admire your courage for calling.
If she's in any position to do so, yeah, absolutely. If she's in any position to do so, have her email, and if she's got some time, myself or some other people will be happy to talk to her on the phone. And I'd be happy to tell her to stop beating up on your mom's religion. It's getting in the way of a necessary healing and healthy relationship. I wish you all the best, Jamie, and by all means, I'm serious. She can send us an email. I'd be happy to talk to her, and we hope everything works out. Actually, I would hope for a near miraculous cure so that all of this problem goes away. And as scientifically implausible as it is, it shouldn't make anybody believe that there's a God, but it certainly would make things better.
Just so you know, she has tried to call y'all. She said that they don't take atheist callers.
Oh, we do too. It's just
we favor theist callers.
Yeah.
Because that makes a better show.
If she's available right now, I got like 2 calls left, which were actually over time, but I'll talk to her whenever she wants. So she can email and I'll call her.
That'd be great. I'll let her know.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yo. It's gonna be a little bit off, but we're not actually, because it might be perspective might be right, you know.
Manage a team, you should be using Monday.com. It's a platform to manage any team and...
How tall is the human body? It's 7 feet.
Maurice in Cedar Hill, how are you?
Hi, hello guys, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Pretty good.
I was wondering if maybe I'm 65 years old and I'm still evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll ever be an atheist because atheists seem to be too finite and thinking death is it.
Do you have any reason to think that death isn't it?
Of course, sure.
Okay.
We just don't believe in claims that don't have evidence. That's the main issue of atheism.
Or skepticism.
Well, in court we have evidence. That's because it's reasonable. It may not be concrete.
If Shane's out back, and Shane come in and give me a thumbs up on this, because I think you're playing fast and loose with what you can do in a court, but we definitely couldn't demonstrate the truth of, the courts also don't allow spectral evidence. They used to. Hang on. Once upon a time, you could go into courtrooms and talk about how the witch cast a spell on you. We don't allow that anymore. And so when it comes to things about the afterlife, we don't allow testimonial or claims related to the afterlife in a court. And so that at least tells you that if you're going to try to appeal to this is something we could allow in court, you're wrong.
Well, I was thinking more civil court. Where
you can't do it in civil court either. If I walk in and I'm suing somebody for slander, I can't say Molly's ghost told me that this happened.
No, but your claim can be somebody can win money from you based on circumstantial evidence, and your money can be transferred to somebody else based on circumstantial evidence.
Okay.
A preponderance of evidence.
A preponderance of evidence, but let's set aside circumstantial for a second, because that's, as far as I know, is objectionable. Can we get to whatever your question was, or your evidence for an afterlife?
Where I am is what if we change the definition of God to more of a process than a singular deity? A process where we're born and we evolve and we grow to and able to become a spiritual creature in another realm.
One of my frustrations with sitting in this seat is that everybody seems to have a different notion of what God is, and then they sort of say, well, you can't prove that my God doesn't exist, sort of thing. It'd be really nice if the theists would all get together and figure out what they believe in and just pick one thing. But I don't see that happening. So I'm clearly moved by redefinitions of God. I don't see any reason for it.
There have been a lot of attempts to redefine God. There are some people who say God is the universe. Well, I believe in the universe. Why call it God? But you were like, what if we define it as a process of being born? I was with you for a while there, right up until you got this transition to being a spiritual being. We've got no evidence that any such thing exists.
Well, my loose evidence is, I've experienced a couple of, witnessing a couple of people who experienced the near-death experience. Yeah. One was my father. My father was a no-nonsense guy. He didn't go to church. He never talked to religion. And he was a bad diabetic. And he's in the hospital, and I'm sitting there, and we're laughing and talking like we've done a million times. And all of a sudden, my father freezes, and he's looking up. Now, keep in mind, my father wasn't short of oxygen. His vitals were good. This thing with the doctor said about short of oxygen, that wasn't happening. And he called his brother's name, the deceased brother. Now, when he come back to himself, he was astounded. He would never have talked to me about that. He'd have felt ridiculous.
How did you determine that it's more likely that he was actually talking with these people and not that there was something wrong with his brain?
Well, you're talking about somebody who is still on their faculties. You're not talking about somebody who's having
I'm talking about somebody who had an experience for which we don't have. You don't get to say that he has all of his faculties. You have no idea what was going on in his brain at the moment that he's reporting this experience.
Well, he's okay, and 99.9% except this one thing. And all of a sudden,
99.9% of statistics are pulled right out of somebody's ass.
Well, what I mean by that, what I mean by that is he's not saying anything. Green is still green to him. The sky is still blue to him.
Yes.
But just this one thing. One thing.
You're aware that there are all sorts of weird things that happen with people's brains, and some of them are not necessarily permanent. Just because we have a hallucination doesn't mean that we're not rational once the hallucination's over.
Okay, I'm going to go to the second one. I lost my.
I'll go to the second one.
Was
that your best one or not?
More than one thing.
Was that the best one or not? Have we convinced you that you reached a conclusion improperly?
I think they're pretty equal. My daughter, who had
hang on, I'm not done talking about this.
Okay.
Your dad had an experience.
All right.
What can we say about that experience? What conclusion can we reach?
Being his son, who knows him so well that he's when I tell my kids the same thing. If I tell you how this, probably can better look into it because I'm the same kind of guy as him. I'm pretty logical.
See, here's the problem, Maurice.
Rational.
I'm not doubting that your father had an experience. I'm asking you, what conclusion can we reach about that experience?
Well, for me, coupled with other witnesses that I've seen, other things, these different experiences, leads me to say, well, I can't 100% say death is it.